I think that looks fine. I mean, it's only going to be,
Right.
so
Okay.
I don't think it matters, but it's up to you.
No, I'm good. I just
This man knows how to sell real estate. The beauty of what Mike has done is Mike builds relationships. And off of building those relationships, he tells stories. And as part of the storytelling, he builds success and credibility by storytelling. I'm so excited again about this series. This series is really going to highlight our give back to the community, especially right now with the changes happening in potentially in July with the whole fire.
You're live? That's weird.
You're awesome. All right, you ready to rock and roll?
Wireless.
Oh, bummer. All right, we're gonna go ahead and rock and roll. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Weiland. Hi in the room. Hi online.
We're back.
Oh, we're back. We're doing a little live thing with Mark here.
Now we got a story to tell about the one time we went.
It's dying. All right. All right, we're losing the live feed, but that's okay. This is not clicking here. Okay.
Just click and then just click one with the thing.
So with the what? Sorry, I'm not there. We go.
Now you'll be
Oh,
able to try.
got it.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is just a little bit about me. I won't, I guess the important things that are relevant to this talk is I spent my career before in real estate as a counselor for young people. So a big part of my work with other people was based in storytelling, because as I'll get into as we go, there's reality to, stories do so much. I mean, they create credibility, they alleviate fear, they take it out of a intense back and forth and more of an overall, and let somebody kind of own their decisions. So I think that it's essential, and it's not just and I want to be really clear about this. I'm going to lay out kind of some ways of doing things and how to do things and so forth. But the reality is, real storytelling is individual too, and it's about relationships. So it's not just like I have story about real estate. I mean, it's got to be much more of a, is it appropriate? What's happened, so forth. And I'll explain as we go. So let's jump on in. This is going to be fun. It's a little bit of an overview. We're going to talk about what makes a story, like what makes a good story really is what we're looking for. Good. Okay. Why do we tell stories? So kind of what they serve, how they serve different situations. It's all about relationships, like I talked about, and then creating your own shtick, which is kind of having your own groove, because different people are different, and I think that's really, really critical. And I'll get into this a little bit more as we go, but we learn so much in real estate, and you guys are in like training, and you're getting all this thing and that thing, and sometimes we get caught in this, it has to be done this way. I think I'm pretty good proof it doesn't, there's just one way to do it, right? But here's what's interesting, because I think about, like, Mark and Neil are very different, and I know there's different personalities on our team, but the effective people, anybody that you watch in real estate, it comes down to they practice the same basic skills, and a lot of that is what we're going to cover. But you got to do that with your personality. Don't try to be somebody else, and I think that's critical. All right, so let's rock and roll here. So what makes a good story? There's the old joke. Or you can ask me, Kathy, we asked me the joke. Ready? You got to say, what's the key to comedy? Go, ready? Timing. See, that's bad timing, right? So that's good. So the reality of this is, timing is critical with stories. It's about and again, forgive me if I go back to some counseling terminology at times, but that's how my brain works. But really interpreting a social situation is critical. And I'll tell you, this is where I make mistakes sometimes, because I'll just kind of bull in the china shop and miss. But especially when dealing with clients, is it a good time for humor? Is it a good time for this? Is it a good time just to listen and let them talk? Where I got in trouble when I first started in real estate, and I still do sometimes, is when people would have an issue. I was so trained as a fireman to go in and put out this fire and do the thing, that it would be like, okay, here's what you need to do. And now I've learned sometimes you just need to talk, and sometimes they'll talk themselves all the way into the solution, and I'll just go, I agree, that's a good point. And it's just in sports they say, let the game come to you a little bit. as opposed to chasing the puck. It's like, let the game come to you. And that's a lot of what I think is really, really good in that kind of thing. And I get into that a little bit more in communication. This is one of my favorite things of all time. And this works, I think, in real estate, in relationships, and anything. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said by me right now? Okay. And again, it kind of goes along with letting the game come to you. First, I got to go, does this even need to be said? Is this more about me or my agenda or something that's just going to confuse the issue? And restraint of tongue and pen and email and text is very important sometimes, right? So then I go, okay, now I think it does need to be said, but am I the one who needs to say it? Do they need to hear this from someone else? Is there someone else like an inspector or a person or someone else that if they said this to them, they're going to hear that a whole lot better? And if it does need to be said by me, then do I need to say it now? Or like I said before, do I need to wait, let it come to me a little bit and then circle back to it? Who does this serve? And this is a key one for me because, when we get caught up in the moment, it's easy to, for me anyway, it's always separating, what serves this client the best, what serves this situation the best. My dog can be in the fight, but it can't be the biggest dog. I don't know if you ever heard that saying. That's one of my favorite, because this is our business. So the outcome we are involved in, but ultimately, the more I can separate myself from that, the better I'm going to be clear with that client and be able to really, tell them the best possible thing. Purpose, to relate and create connection, kind of covered that, but specifically, it's not just the story you tell for that situation. It's the communication that starts to happen back and forth as a result. My favorite is when they start telling me stories and it becomes that kind of thing. The best is when they remember a story that you told them before and they bring that guy up or that, because I have like those guys in those situations in my head, kind of my go-tos, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but that's the best is when they say it back to you, they got it, to give people solutions related to our or others' experience. And this is huge because this fits, I don't care where you're at as far as your career on the team, being on a team, it's like, there's so much experience just in this room, life experience, real estate experience, job experience. I mean, so much. And I use people like I use Neil, he's my Obi-Wan, so I use him especially doing listing stuff now, but I use new agents too. They go, oh, they just had this deal and check this out. It's like everybody's got value, and I think the more eclectic we can be in our collection of stories, the better. Because we're going to have hopefully an eclectic group of clients, right? So different people are going to serve different people. I love it when someone, oh, there's this other, she's a nurse and they'd make a good, or they're a teacher, or whatever. It's like, it's fun to connect those kind of things, right? And I do it too. It was funny, we were listening to Brian Danny this morning, who I just adore, man. I think he is gold. And he was talking about like relationships too with like other agents and so forth, right? And it's interesting because I think even in those things we can relate. Like if we're working with a buyer, or we can broaden that storytelling to include people also involved in that transaction, not just our experience. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I think that's cool. When I learn something about the clients that's positive, it's like I try to put them in a positive light, so it makes the negotiations with stuff go better. So all of that plays. To take ourselves out of the position of telling someone what to do and instead help them figure it out and own it. That's huge because it's hard to not tell people what to do when you know what they need to do. I mean, it really is. And in their best interest, like this is the best thing. But the problem is if you don't let them own it, then it's your decision.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't go right, they're coming back to you. You know what I mean? It's like we want the credit, so we'll sometimes people have a hero complex. So I mean, I've had that a million times. It's like I want to be the guy that has the solution. Check my ego at the door and go, this isn't about me. This is about one, sure, the credit's nice, but you don't want the ownership if it doesn't go well either. So you got to really give them both sides. You know what I mean? So that's a key piece. Went crazy there. And then I said flair, because I think this is huge. This kind of goes back to personalizing it. I think humor is critical, you know what I mean? And it's fun to play with people. It's fun to get people to laugh. I think when we get somebody laughing, especially when they're stressed out, and also not just humor in the sense of, hey, telling jokes, but humor in the sense of not taking stuff so seriously and learning to go, in the grand scheme of things, we're arguing over $100 here, you know what I mean? And like giving people perspective on that and helping them as far as, removing themselves from the drama sometimes I think is huge. Um, character development. This is what I was talking about earlier. So not only in an individual story of like walking somebody through, setting up the details, making it so somebody can visualize that person. I think that's huge because good storytelling is not just about I had a problem, this happened, we fixed it. I mean, it's got to be about so this guy. I mean, his name was Larry and his wife Cindy. They were amazing people, and they came from the North Coast. And you get into this whole thing, and they get sucked in, right? And they kind of want to know, okay, what happened? What happened to Larry? They'll even bring it up later. What happened with that deal? That has happened to me with clients, and I think that's huge because you're getting people again out of themselves. A lot, 9 times out of 10, my problems are solved when I step out of trying to solve them between my ears. When I'm all by myself trying to isolate, that's when I don't see the way out. The forest through the trees, all those things. So the reality is, we're helping clients do that and get out of that self-centered perspective and get into a broader perspective. And I think that that's where a lot of their solutions are going to come from. Humility and self-disclosure. I talk about mistakes I made. I talk about mistakes I made in renovating my house. And I go, if I could have went back, I would have done it this way and this. Hindsight's 2020. I talk about my marriage. I talk about all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? And because there's a humanization to that is huge. And when they see us as a trusted advisor, which we'll get to in the next section, to me is not just, hey, real estate. Obviously, that's but it's also about the connection with the person on the other side. It's like, hey, you're a human, and your compassion and integrity and like desire to have my back is real. And you combine that, that's a powerful thing. Who wouldn't want to work with somebody like that, right? And honestly, I've gotten a little bit, I guess, more mature in my career as I've gone. And like, if people don't want to work with me because of that, I don't want to work with them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, if they don't get that's what I bring to the table and that's not important to them, then I go, who are they that's not important to them? And I'm not judging in the sense, it's just more going, well, I guess I am judging a little bit by saying that. But I guess the practical side to it is going, we may not be the best fit. And maybe they'll do better with somebody that's just very matter of, you know what I mean? But bottom line is I know where I work best with people. Future pacing. And this is something Brian, Danny, Sarah talks a lot about this, and I love it because it's there's a lot of credibility to not just telling stories about, oh, this thing came up, not just reactionary, but proaction. I guess proactionary, is that a word? Proactive. I hope so, because that's a good one. So being proactive with that and going, oh, I can't wait until you get that patio built out there in the summer and the trees come in, and I'm showing them a vision. I think about that. Like, there was a house, this is a great one. There was a house, my clients, we were looking, and it wasn't selling, and it was wintertime. And it was like, this, that, and the other. I was like, can you see this backyard? And I walked them through like what they could do back there and what it would look like. And they ended up buying it and doing it. And they send me pictures like as the trees are coming out. And that to me is true success. With someone's like, oh my God. Because they had to have trust. They had to see their own vision, and they had to own it and be going, all right, we're willing to roll these dice. And if that house would have been on the market in the summertime, it would have sold for way more. So that, it was beneficial all the way around. But that kind of stuff is fun. And you can do that with all kinds of situations. I say it all the time. I go, I don't want you to just be happy the day of closing. I actually want you to be happier 6 months after you bought the house. Now, don't get me wrong. This pipe's going to have a thing, and that it's a house, right? But I want you to feel good about, oh my God, we did the right thing and scored the right thing. Yeah.
When you do catch yourself in that moment where maybe you're not vibing with clients, or maybe they're not understanding something, like how do you navigate how to clarify that, or how to maybe mirror them more, or
Say that again. Ask me again. I'm sorry.
just like if ever, and I'm sure you have caught yourself in that situation where you realize people aren't getting you, or
Yeah.
you're not vibing with them, or there's like a little disconnect.
So Dean asked if I'm not vibing with somebody, how do I readjust, or what do I do in that situation? It depends. I mean, first off, I go, they may have something going on that's got nothing to do with me. I don't always take people's mood personally. But I'll try some different, because you can be different with people. Like, you can come at them with that more overt personality, thing. And if they're a little bit, then you could back off and go, hey, well, tell me about you, and get them to talk about themselves a little bit. So what I do ultimately is I try different angles to try to get them comfortable and let them, come back and see if it's going to work. If it's several times in a row, I think we know. I really do. Like I've started to trust my gut earlier a whole lot more, and I don't feel bad going, hey, maybe this person would do better with somebody else. Again, it's that abundance mentality, like Brian talked about, of going, if this isn't going to work, this is going to be a drag all the way down the road. You know what I mean? And so I'd rather them go with somebody they're comfortable with, maybe give them another referral to another agent on the team, something, you know what I mean? But it's interesting. I don't meet a lot of people that I can't vibe with on some level. It may not be the clients that I'm going to talk to for the next 20 years, and I have some of those. It may be like I had this one guy, and I was certain like he did not like me. And I mean, this guy was like an engineer, the most capital D personality I have ever dealt with, right? And he was brilliant, so he is the smartest guy in the room everywhere he goes, and his wife's just as smart, right? And they were both very so I'm working them, and I met him in an open house and followed up, and she had a baby, and so was waiting, and I called them back, and I was like, they're like, yeah, give us another 3 months. Like, these people are gonna call me up when they were ready, and we went out, we found them a house. They didn't change. Like I would be there and go, this. They'd be like, yes. So, and they're like talking to each other. It's like they were their equals. You know what I mean? And I'm not a dumb guy. So like I could hang with the conversations, but they were like, Mensa level, going on this thing. And the best compliment I got was from this guy. When we were getting close to closing, he looked at me, he goes, I've bought and sold a few houses, and honestly, most of the agents I've dealt with are useless. And you have not been. You've been very helpful. So everything I was saying, he was taking in. He just wasn't going, hey, great point, and I got to remember, just because I need that validation with my own, it doesn't mean it's not his responsibility to give it to me. You know what I mean? So to me, there's a difference in vibing in the sense of um, we have this great thing, and vibing in the sense of our relationship is solid enough that I'm helping them and they appreciate my service. Does that make sense? And that was as good as it got from that guy, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I watched it with his kid too. He's like, hello, child. So it wasn't just me. It's like this dude's got his own thing. You know what I mean? So I think did that answer it? Because I think that I also believe in talking to other people about that. Like, hey, here's what's going on. I use Sarah a lot with situations because I go, is this me or is this, what I mean? And I use my wife, I use other friends that I go, I get along with these 9, but this one, here's the other thing I noticed about human beings. We can walk into a room and we get along with 9 out of the 10 people in the room. Who do we focus on? The one we don't get along with, right? We're like, and then they're talking about me. What I mean? Like we can go nuts with that. So this quote at the bottom, I put here for a reason. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth, right? Kennedy said that. And I love it. Now, obviously his context was, very different in the time frame that it was said, but I like that when discussing individuality. So when I talk about conformity, I'm talking about not just I'm going to be this person or I have to do everything this way. It's like, I love the way I got trained here because I got so much stuff. Like I could stop doing half the stuff I do and pick up other stuff I don't do as much and still be successful. Do you follow that? I just found the stuff I enjoy doing and works the best in my business, right? So it's like you don't have to, there's not one mold, and there's not one mold with stories, right? So all right, why do we tell stories? We've covered a lot of this. Show people show people we know how to have their back. I think that's critical. Madeline did this whole and is doing this whole campaign I love about stories where we help people out of jams, out of situations, and I think that's brilliant because that's ultimately what people want. It's funny. I was talking with this new guy that I met. One of the first buyers consultations I did it on Zoom. It was the new buyers agency and all that. He's a great guy. And I said to him, I was like, people don't want an agent. They want a house. And we forget that sometimes. Like, they're not like, man, I really need a real estate agent. No, they want a house. And I guess like, okay, I guess I got to deal with the real, you know what I mean? Right. So it's kind of remembering, I don't have better words, but remembering our place in that. We're not the star of the show. And that's huge. The star of the show is the client and the co-star is the house. And we're, kind of the executive producer, director in the background. Okay, this, that, key gaffer, guy that gets water. We're kind of all of those things, right? But we're not stars. Right? Yeah. And I'm just full transparency. I struggle with that sometimes. Like it's honest, you know what I mean? Like I came from like I had to be the talent. I was doing public speaking, thing, even that stuff can go to your head. So I have to remember that's also where I remember to be quiet. Sometimes you're quiet, man. That's an amazing thing. I still struggle with sometimes. Right. Right. I'm going to repeat that so everybody online heard that too. But Kathy said, if your love language is affirmations, positive affirmations, and you're not getting that, then it's easy to go, what am I doing wrong? And it kind of goes back to my guy, my engineer, triple engineer degree guy. It's like, then I got to go get that from somewhere else and go, I can't expect this guy to be that,
Right.
All right. So it shows clients they're not alone, kind of covered that. Stories humanize and lower defense and fear. I think that by humanizing ourselves, we allow other people to be more human. I think by listening, I think all of those things play like we talked about. Um, so to show our team's expertise, this is key, shows clients that it's not our first rodeo. I love that. Like if they go, oh my God, there's a crack. And you go, oh man, let me tell you about this one. And in those situations, a lot of times I'll pick a worse situation and go, it wasn't that bad, what we found out. So they're going, okay, if this is less than that, they can do the deduction, right? Using other people's stories shows clients the size of the net the team gives. I utilize the team a lot because and I did it when I was newer but I find that in some ways I do it more now because I know the team better, and there's always, it's fun to like make it about other situations. And that's even another step of removal of you and I, which sets up better ownership in them. And we got a lot of great experience. I mean, if you just listen to the stories, it's like some of the stuff, and it's like, man, I hope I don't ever have to deal with that, but if I do, it's been dealt with, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, we walked into a house I did with some clients Saturday, and this wall it was one of the most intense, peered, and I mean, you could literally see the wall was like this and then redone. Right now, it's guaranteed for life with the structure and that. In the past, when I walked into that, it would have been like, you know what I mean? This time, based on my experience and listening to what other people have done, I practiced exactly. So I said, when you guys get here, let's go look at this first because because the house was awesome. I was like, but you got to decide, and I can't decide for you, your comfort level of this. And I shared one family that I worked with that they were comfortable with it because he knew enough about it. He grew up in a house, they did that, and it never changed for 25 years. I had another, the second they heard found day, they were out. You know what I mean? They didn't need the word finished. Right. So and so I said, I don't know where you're at with that. And you're allowed to be wherever you are. Here's what we'll do if you want to go through it. If not, let's take off now. You know what I mean? And they debated it. They went back and forth. They decided they didn't want any part of that. And that's okay. But it was their decision, right? Hearing the positive outcome relaxes them, kind of like I just described, explaining how not taking advice can cost them problems. That's it. Through stories, a lot of times I'll go, I had, even if it's my client, sometimes I'll even choose to go, there's a member of our team who had a client. I'll even remove it from me so it doesn't have I'm really just trying to say this, but I basically illustrate the point of going, the advice is given, they didn't take it, this is what happened. Because they need to hear that. Just as much as they need to hear the advice was taken and this happened, it was great. They need to hear that can be a problem. And that's, Mark posted this, I think it was the problem solution result thing, I think is brilliant. And that's kind of a premise in stories. Like, here was the problem, here's the solution, here's where it is now. And that can work positively and negatively. All right. Why we tell stories, communication. So this is fun. By communicating with stories, we teach clients it is safe to communicate honestly. We can take it. And that's kind of, I think we've covered that because that's basically that relationship piece where we develop that open communication back and forth. Communication resolves all problems. That's one of my favorite sayings because it really does. Like, if you think about problems in marriage, friendships, things, work, it comes down to miscommunication. Hell, 90% of sitcoms are created on miscommunication. If you think about it, so I heard the wrong thing, and that's reality in life. And so being able to communicate, is key in this. And I get into a little bit of communication training, I guess. I heard somewhere, communication is 80% listening. I don't know who quantified that, but I think what they're trying to say is majority is listening. Because if you can listen to where somebody's at, then you can respond. That's the Covey quote that, is all over things. And I actually pulled another Covey quote that gives you a little bit more breakdown of what he was talking about. It's a great setup about communication. He wrote 7 Habits, and he also wrote the 8th Habit, which is, I think, actually where this came from. So it's the whole book's about communication. So it's understanding that if I'm listening to where you're at, where you're coming from, then my response is going to be totally different. If I jump on the first thing you say, I could totally miss the point, because a lot of times people don't say what they really mean until about the third or fourth thing that they finally get to, because they're processing. Right. So the biggest communication problem is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. I think if we're honest, for me, if I'm afraid of a situation, I'm listening to defend, and that's an even worse position to come from. But it's honest, right? Because you're going, whoa, whoa, blah, 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 right? I got distracted for a second. I just had this here for my phone. I got distracted for a second when you were asking me a question earlier, because I saw, this is a real time life situation. I saw something and it was like, oh God, is that a problem? And it distracted me for a second, and I felt myself already going to. And I'm like, I got to stop in those moments. And I've gotten better at this and just go, it's not that big. It's going to be okay. We're going to work it out, Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, Deepak Chopra talks about the anticipation of the event is way worse than the event.
Yeah.
He talks about people preparing for like a storm and a hurricane and thing. And it's bad. So stuff got he goes, and some stuff got ripped up and some damage happened, but it wasn't as bad as anybody thought. So I try to remember that it's like it's not gonna be the end of the world.
It's
You know what I mean?
strange that there's all these things where
Yeah.
that exact thing happens over and over and over again, but we still put ourselves in that same place of, oh no.
Yeah. Dread, fear, false events appearing real. That's my favorite acronym for fear, and we're convinced it's gonna happen, you know what I mean? But I told Sarah another one of my favorite one is forgetting everything's all right. And that's usually a very relevant one in these situations. It's like, it's gonna be okay. And ultimately, I'm not in shock.
But that was huge for me when you said that.
Which part? False events appearing real? Oh, forgetting everything is all right. Because in other words, the situation is not as bad as I think. It's not the end of the world. I used to think like a mutual release was the end of the world, and it feels like that. And when you're new, I'm validating that is horrible. It sucks. It still sucks. The difference, I have one that's probably going to mutual release here, and very possible. And I'm like, it's okay. She's going to buy another house. Do I want it to happen? No. But happiness is defined not by getting your way, it's by accepting the way things are going. And that's what people forget. It's easy to be happy when everything's going your way, but then your happiness is very, very suspect, because the second you don't get your way, you're not going to be happy.
Experience when he was new, he had like 6 or 7 mutual releases.
It's horrible. But I am. Yeah.
Either way. Now, but then had all of this terrible stuff happen right when he was new, and
Right.
this guy didn't quit.
Right.
He just kept chugging away at it. So what's anybody else's excuse?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's tough, and when you knew, and he did. It's like, if you just stay the course, it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. And you know what? Ultimately, in mutual release situations, like if that person stayed in it, how do we know we didn't avoid something way worse? And so yeah, and be bombed or something. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times somebody mutual release and then found another place. Like, oh my God, I'm so glad we didn't get that other one. You know what I mean? And it's like, who am I to? I mean, how self-centered do I have to be to make these people spending 300,000, 400,000, $1.5 million, $2 million? It's somehow about me if they don't close the deal. It's like, this is their world. And again, I'm the key grip. I'm not it's not my, and what makes a great agent is someone who I think can be a person and be a person like that's, I see that in their own ways. It comes down to that, whether somebody's the rock or somebody's the thing. There's a presence with that agent. That's a fair way to put it, whether that's experience, flash, whatever. But I think we have to remember, my role is to serve this client. I mean, I can do that with fun and flair and things and stories and deals, but it still comes down to, am I serving this client? And when we have that attitude straight, it's like, bummer, it didn't go my way, but it ain't my show, right? So, all right. So what is the ain't my pig, ain't my circus? What's the old country saying?
Circus.
Yeah, no, there's monkeys in the circus, but there's it's ain't my pig, ain't my son. I'll have to remember it. It's funny, but it's basically talking about, it ain't my deal. This is just my part over here. And I think when we operate in that, as they say, 3-foot world, what we can control, life goes a lot better.
Mm.
So the biggest communication problem is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply or defend, as we said. Now here's more of the solution of it. He says, when we listen with the intent to understand others rather than the intent to reply, we begin true communication, relationship building. Opportunities to then speak openly to be understood come much more naturally and easily.
Thing.
Right? Yeah, it's a really, really good one. I like that quote a lot. And it's, the other one's the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi, to be understanding rather than understood, to be loving rather than loved. I mean, that whole, like, it's about being of service to others, not what do I get, which I think is pretty amazing. So, all right. It's all about relationships. Trusted advisor. And like I said, some of this will be redundant, but that's okay. Share our experience, strength, and hope through stories. I think that's kind of the bottom line of what we're doing. The relationship requires trust and commitment on both sides, ergo, a signed buyer's agency, right? So this all relates to me because Sarah and I tie this in, and it's a no-brainer to me. It's like, now it's the only difference I see in what's happening is we have to do a little bit more of this work. I do anyway, up front, because I didn't have a problem with showing guys homes. I knew I would connect with them and get a thing with them. And then it would be like, all right, look, if we're working together. But I think I was still operating out of some insecurity with that, honestly, because it was like, I want to win them over and then think. Now, whether it's having enough confidence in what I do, whether it's times they are changing, whatever, but it's again, anticipation of the event. I was afraid I would lose people if I did. Now my experience has been in these buyers consultations of like, look, I'm awesome at what I do, and I'm going to have your back, and here's how, and here's the way I've had other people's backs, and I'm probably going to talk you out of a couple houses, but that's my job. And I tell people when we go to, I'm weird when I show houses. I'm different than a lot of people. I don't go in and go, ooh, a sink, right? These people have already seen this house online. They know what they like. I'm going around going, hey, do you see this crack over here? This is an issue. Now I'm commenting on the good stuff too. And I am, I'm like building up the house if it's a good house. But my job is to have their back and see things they may not see because they're blinded by the cool stuff they see. And that kind of credibility and connection. But that's where I'm at, because they're going to see it eventually anyway. They're going to see it in the inspection. It's going to create an issue, or worse, they don't see it, and then the ceiling falls down a month after they're in the house. You know what I mean? It's like nobody wants that. So it's really protecting them like that. Relationship requires trust and commitment on both sides. Okay, okay. This is when I talked to Sarah about. So when I was a counselor, one of my mentors, he pulls me and he totally suckered me into this conversation, but it was great. He goes, you know the term con man, right? I was like, well, yeah. He's like, it's got a really negative connotation in our society. I was like, well, yeah, it's like people that rip people off. He's like, well, you realize as a counselor or agent or somebody that's serving somebody else, it's a very similar skill set. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, a con man is a confidence man. Okay. That's where the word comes from. And a confidence man lures you in with their confidence, like your confidence in something. They lure you in and then they take advantage of it. Right. But a trusted advisor does the same thing. It's just the motive is different. I'm not going to take advantage. I'm going to protect you and have your back. But the skill sets are the same. And I say that because when someone goes, well, because real estate agents aren't always thought of, especially buyers aren't thought of in this high regard, ergo lawsuits and things and deals and calling us used car sales. You know what I mean? So I go straight at it. And I go, well, I remember in a counseling situation, it's like, wow, you're a con man. It's like, yes. Like, wait, what? I was like, yes, I'm a confidence man. I have confidence in this process because it works. The difference is the motive. And that blew their circuits. It was like, that's amazing, right? Because it is true, because we are flashy and we say sayings and we do things. So don't be afraid to go, well, no, I'm giving you stuff that is quote unquote selling you on something. But what I'm selling you on is not selling you this house. It's selling you on the process of getting this house, going through these things, and my expertise of guiding you through it with grace and credibility and honesty and integrity and all these things. Do you follow that? So some of it, I love going straight at the, well, you know what I mean? It's like, you're kind of right. Here's how. They go, wait, what? Because there's no, you know what I mean? They're expecting you to go, you say that, but in reality, I get it because it is. And there is a personality aspect in that drives this. So does that make sense? Because you got to understand that all the way through for it to be, but that's a fun one. Yeah. What happened?
No, I think it's not my chili. She was just joking.
What did she say? Love it. Who said that?
Great.
Thank you, Brittany. Not my beans, not my chili. Yeah, not my monkey, not my circus. Yeah, that's the other one. But there's one with a pig. I don't remember what it is. It's the same. It's all the same thing. No, I swear to God. I think I actually heard it on Letterkenny. All right. So does that make sense to everybody? Because that's a tricky one. You don't want to go, yes, I am a con man, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's interesting because people have a hard time trusting because they probably have had bad experiences, things like that in the past. So if you peep like up front, yes, there is an agenda here that you may not totally. Here's what the agenda is. You just say it. You go, well, of course I want to make a sale and make money, but not at the expense of you. Both can exist. I can be really good at this, walk you through it, help you do it, and I still get paid. What's wrong with that? And they go, nothing. So then when you say something like good service ain't cheap, cheap service ain't good, they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Right. So guide them, advise them, teach them, but make sure they own their decisions. So it kind of goes back to that. It's like, no, I want you to get all the credit and all the downside. That's on you. My job and is to do my job and inform you. That's a trusted advisor. Expect challenges. So baby fell. It's another one from that I learned a long time ago. So the saying goes, what does a baby do when it falls?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, it looks at its parents a lot of times, and if they go, then it cries. If they kind of wait, unless it's really not, if it's really hurt, it's going to cry, right? But I'm saying babies fall all the time, and they bounce, and they're made of soft material so that they don't hurt themselves, right? So they bounce, and a lot of times you watch a baby do that, and if nobody reacts, they kind of get up and just go back to it. That's a great way to handle the situation. Okay, I got you. Okay, well, what happened? Breathe. Remember to breathe and listen. Hear it all the way out. Let him get it all out. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, I think probably 8 times out of 10, maybe 9, they're not mad at me, but they sound mad at me. They're scared. They're upset at the situation. They don't like something. And if I did do something wrong and made a mistake, then I go, you know what? You're right. I'm on it. I'll fix it. Oh my God. They're not going to kill me. They're not going to eat me. You know what I mean? But it's like this panic, this trauma response. It's like, now just listen, breathe, and then respond. Right. And I'm a big fan of respond rather than react. Right. We react emotionally, but responses come mentally. So I can still feel like a 9-year-old who's scared, but if I act like a 51-year-old man who has the answer, they're never going to know.
Say that again.
Respond rather than react. And a lot of times it's just listen to this, and it's okay. And in fact, it's fun when we're kind of freaked out and then we respond, appropriately. You got to be cool. And don't get me wrong, this is major, and I am blessed. And anybody that's dealt, I have dealt with much worse crisis in the human existence than I'm not spending another $1,000 on this inspection. Trust me, and I'm not going to get into it, but in the world that I live in, none of these things are the end of the world. None of them. Perspective. Thank you. And actually, the one quote I didn't get on here was the Obi-Wan quote. These truths we cling to are only a matter of perspective. And that's exactly right. It's just step back and go, they're my friend. I got their back. And nothing's going to be so bad we can't deal with it. Right. I make it worse when I'm like, right along with them. And then now they're fueling their fire. And now everybody's freaked out and mad. You know what I mean? If you tell someone you are an expert, they may make you prove it. The way I actually learned that, okay, is that, again, it was from my past world in recovery. They said, if you tell someone you love them, they're going to make you prove it, right? Because people have issues with trust and relationships and things. So we're now in this relationship with people, right? Their stuff's going to play out if they get close to you. It's the reality of human interaction. And they're not going to consciously do it, but they may have a situation where someone had their, and then, and so if you make a mistake or a perceived mistake or don't get, they're going to take it 3 times as hard sometimes if you get closer to them. You follow that? Because it's more sensitive. So remember that, and remember people are going to, sometimes you're going to be doing great with somebody. They'll just be weird to you one day because, they're not weird. They're not used to having that kind of connection with somebody. Again, it ain't personal, It's hard to not take it personal when you're a person, but it ain't personal, So, don't take it personal when you get upset or afraid. Psychic. All right, we're almost through here. Oh, it's not clicking this time. There it goes. All right, so buyer's agency, using stories of confidence and experience, market knowledge, we covered that. Go straight at them and risk rejection. I love that line. You know what I mean? And I am Sarah's famous, F around and find out. I'm like, what do you got to lose? If you just go for it and tell stories, even if you bomb, like you're gonna get better at it. If you fail in a buyer's concept, quote unquote, you're gonna get better at it. You're gonna learn more. If you're humble and honest and go to other people and go, man, I think this, and go to people you feel listen to you and understand where you're at. We jive with different people. I like people that are very direct with me and go, no, dude, you were that guy and you overstepped here and you kind of, this. And I'm well, okay. And then, and then I'll take it and I'll process it and I'll go, you're right. That's exactly what I did. You know what I mean? And I love that. Some people don't need that. They need somebody that's a little more Socratic and goes, what do you think you did? What do you know what I mean? And find your people. But I think we are responsible too for finding the teachers that teach us best. I don't think that's someone else's job, right? So that's key. Go straight to the suggestions, speak to them and using stories. Good service ain't cheap, cheap service ain't good. So there's a confidence in that. If just I am my best me, this is what I bring to the table, love it or leave it. You know what I mean? It's like, let's do this. I know I can serve you, but if you feel comfortable and having that with true release is very powerful. That's a different level of confidence, in my opinion. It's not like, oh, I know the market and here are stats. That's key too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that doesn't have a lot of value because it does. But the human connection of I got you back in period is very powerful. Now you combine the two, it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Which was actually what got me to the Gelman team, is because I saw that combined in situations like that's powerful shit. So I'm sorry, stop. All right. So I did made it this whole time.
I know.
All right. So creating your own story. All right. Have your go-to stories. Have your own collection of stories. Like I talked about, I do. I got, my engineer guy. I got this thing. I got the wall thing. I got whatever. Use your stories in the beginning of the relationship to forecast the road ahead. We talked about that with future pacing. Thank you. Remember to use other stories as well as your own. Covered that. Be genuine, be yourself, be human. I think we covered that pretty well. And have fun figuring that out. What was it? Oscar Wilde who said, my biggest mistake is that I let go of my obstinate choice obstinate pursuit of my own individuality. What a great line. So he's talking about as he got older, he just kind of conformed to stuff. And he's like, that was his greatest mistake. So Oscar Wilde has some great lines. Be yourself, be human, validate concerns and use stories to remedy fear. We cover that. Self-disclosure, piece of your life, personal experience. Your little things come down. Dogs in there. And then practice on people, practice your stories with friends. You know what I mean? I have some hybrid stories where it was like, I'll tell them like this one, and I think it's okay. It's not like it, they start to blend a little bit, you know what I mean? And you create these characters of clients that have happened in the past, you know what I mean? And I think that through those stories, we can, like any parable, the story it's not about the people in the story. It's about the moral of the story and the premise and so forth. So that's, I think, really important. Be humble, talk about what does not work. I like that too. I like sitting with people and going, man, I threw my best stuff at, they were just nothing, right? And I remember I actually talked about that client with somebody at that time, and it was just like, well, I mean, are they responding? I'm like, yeah, it's just cold as ice. I'm like, so what? Okay. I like this one. Record yourself and take notes. Like practice stories. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Reservoir Dogs. It's one of my favorite movies, right? Reservoir Dogs. It's Quentin Tarantino's movie before Pulp Fiction. That's, in my opinion, in some ways better, but got famous after Pulp Fiction. It's one of those. So there's a scene in that movie, and it's a very intense movie. It's not for everybody. It's very graphically violent, right? But there's a scene in that movie where this undercover cop's teaching this other undercover cop how to sell his character. And he gets into this whole description of like telling the story. And you got to know all the details, and you got to know this. You got to know if they use the pink granulated shit, that whole thing, right? And he gets into this whole thing, and it's brilliant. The dialogue is just amazing. And the whole point is, but then you got to keep saying it till it just becomes you. I'm not telling it. It's like breathing. It just happens, right? And that's where you really get that genuine thing that starts to go down. So practice your stories, grab onto I write details down sometimes of things that happen because I'm like, that's something good to use down the road. You know what I mean? Grab on other people's stories, like create your own bag of stuff and you can take stuff out, put new stuff in. It's fun.
If you guys are watching, I mean, literally all Mike does is tell stories. Like, it's actually fascinating. That's why this works so well, because but it's just always in its credibility, and that's the weirdest thing ever. I have to share this because it's so good. Okay, so yesterday Mike and I are talking through this whole thing, and we're both talking about our EXP share work account, and he's like, "Hey, I need to get in there." I'm like, "She said why? That's funny you say that." So I call first.
Can we put you on here?
We're together. No, they don't care.
All right.
So I call first, and I get someone, and we are not at all friends. Okay, we're like very just like matter of fact. It's like, thank you, I got in, we're fine. Like, okay, done. Mike calls after me. I don't know why. I don't know why we took turns, but in
I
the
was thinking, well, he wouldn't know. He wouldn't let us get on the line. He's like,
no.
remember
Okay,
your guy was like, hello.
my guy goes, no, I can't. So Mike calls back, and I'm not even joking when I tell you, I was like, do you know this guy? They were like vibing immediately. Mike's taking, telling jokes. He finds out where he lives. He finds out Mike's from St. Louis. He's telling Mike about about the new 18
Yeah, I went to the Budweiser Stadium. Brady. Yep.
It's like he loves you. I'm like, Mike had this, but it's because Mike's just rolling in the mall. He's like online.
And I was not even like in my whole thing. I was kind of like, it was straight right brain. You know. Well, you had like your guy sounded like a movie character. He's like this British guy. He's like, hey, Sarah, how may I assist you today? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just like, it was so funny.
Anyway. It's reversed of that too, because it like that. It's like remembering the guy's name and the thing, and I'm a weird human with that. I like to remember movies and lines, but if you don't have that, write it down. Like details they give you, when you give them back, that's another form of storytelling.
You become so relatable with it.
Yeah, you do. You're a great storyteller. Yes. You riff.
You basically like relate through, I truly do believe, through your story. But I think we take it for granted to some extent because we know you. And so, but other people, when they experience it for the first time, it's like immediately their guards down, immediately they're your friend, immediately they feel familiarity to you. It's powerful. So the more you can practice it, the better you're going to be at relating to people.
And be into people. Like that's the other thing. It's like that's not an act. Like I really, and sometimes I got to act a little more than others because I want to do this thing, but it's a gear that I'm used to enough to that I can get into. But it is about like, it's like, why do you want to win this person? It's not even about winning them over. It's just about being a fellow human. You know what I mean? That kind of agape love that like we're all in this thing, and it's fun. And I find people fascinating because you never know what somebody's story is. Like you think and then you get to know, and you're like, whoa, I would not have connected that. That's amazing. You know what I mean? Or I mean, like,
all of that.
Oh yeah.
Knowing their story and then knowing at the end they're like, I mean, you're like, and they are the ones that are keeping in contact with you. They're the ones coming to the bowling party.
Right.
You're like,
yeah.
Always want to prejudge people because sometimes they're more invested in what you can provide and help. They might be difficult at the onset. And
they may not be as outward as their adoration.
Right.
You know what I mean, as we may be towards somebody. You know what I mean? Like you said, love languages, they might just go, you're cool, and that's not for them. We don't know, Questions, anything else anybody wants to ask or?
I think it's a question. So I think it's hard in our business when you have a client, you work with someone and for whatever reason, it doesn't end very nicely.
Yeah.
And you take that into your next transaction and you seem like a wall or a wounded scenario and how do you reset yourself, because it's hard. It's so hard to not carry that baggage with you because you're always talking to people. We're always, and it is easy to kind of absorb them into ourselves. And it's like, man, they're like, how do you take the wall down, but also protect yourself? Because I don't know, or protect your energy, or is it not about you? I don't know. Question. What do you think? What's your
Sarah's question? Should I repeat it so people? Yeah. Sarah was basically asking, how do you invest your energy but still protect yourself so you have a little bit of a boundary there, right? Is that fair way to put it? Okay. I think that's brilliant because I used to be horrible at this, and I'm again grateful to my past career, but I had to relearn it getting into real estate because you get hit from a different angle. Like you get used to in counseling, it's a little bit more, I mean, your enemy, right? So like you learn defenses this, but I get into real estate and it's like, and like, why is this bothering? Why do I care so much about this? I think for me, and this is just my deal, like everything else, mine comes down to, I have my own personal shtick in the morning that I do with meditation, with things, and I focus on this stuff. Like, make me a channel of your peace. Let me be as focused as I can on the needs of others, but not overextend myself. Let me know where I end and you begin. You know what I mean? Like that's really, really important. It's I used to, and this isn't religious, but coming from the world I came from in recovery counseling, all that, there's a famous prayer, the Serenity Prayer. Accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Even if you take the spirituality out of that, that's a powerful set of tools right there, right? I just keep the spirituality in because that's what I believe. But I practice it because I think human beings' problems is the insanity prayer. I think that for me, it'd be, so Mike, grant me the insanity to not accept things I can't change. In fact, I'm going to spend all of my energy trying to change the people, places, and things around me. Let me stay a wuss so that I don't fix my only real problem, which is me. And let me never, ever know the difference of where I end and you begin. Amen. That's guaranteed insanity. Right? So the reverse. What do I accept? Well, I can't change people, places, things, anything outside of me. And I got to really believe that. And I struggle with that because, like, well, where does power of influence come in versus that? It comes to the first one, change the things I can, which is me and my attitudes. My attitude straight. And I am truly going the extra mile and doing the best I can and doing this. And because really it's interesting. I think I only have a real problem with the results when I know I didn't do 100%. If I really know I did everything I could and it goes a different direction, I'm still bummed, but I'm like, man. But when I find myself like, man, nothing's going my way, blah, blah, blah. First of all, I can be a drama queen and I like feeling sorry for myself because I'm human, right? So and it could be like, I had a great 2 weeks ago, like best week of my career. And now this time, nobody's calling me. I'm never going to sell a house again. And I'm Matt Lamb. It's like, it's still one of my go-to dudes. Like I remember when I was early on the team, he was like, man, sometimes you just get to feel like you're never going to sell anything again. I was like, you experience that too, right? So like that was a game changer for me. But it's things like that and going, am I doing everything I can? And then am I letting go of the results because I don't have power over the results? I don't. I have now. Are the results going to be better? I guess. Are the results going to be better as a result of me taking the right actions? Yeah, unequivocally. But the reality is, it doesn't mean I could do everything right, and somebody just don't want to work with me. Or somebody just wants to go a different direction. Or somebody bought a house with McBride because I went, oh, I didn't know. I registered 3 years ago. I should have told you about that. We've been working. That happened recently. It's like, and I was happy for this kid. And he really didn't know. He was like, oh, I would have told you, because he never talked about wanting to do a new build. We looked at houses. He hadn't talked to me in a while. I called him. He's like, oh yeah, I bought a new McBride. I was like, sweet dude. You know what I mean? But and all that would have been different is that if that's what he wanted, then we would either went that direction or not. And I'm like, I don't mind that I spent the time on him. It's like, so it's the reality is life happens. I'm not that powerful, but I am that powerful in my own world.
You find that as long as you don't take yourself too seriously, things work better for you. Because like you said,
yes,
there's only so much you can control. And you might in this business, you might have 4 things happen in 11 minutes that are
right.
And you're just like, I did everything I could in that situation. They decided they didn't want to buy anymore or whatever. And then you just gratefully, thank you, or I don't know, I always like try to end whatever it is positively, because I want them to think about me in 7 years.
Right.
Or whatever that, who knows?
It's a great perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dina was just talking about not taking ourselves so seriously is kind of the key. I think that helps us so much too, just in the moment. Like if I go, look, this is my best I got, and it's not going to end me if they don't work with me. It's weird. I'm relaxed, and when I'm relaxed, I'm more confident. When I'm more confident, I'm more effective.
And then
but if I'm like, I gotta get this person, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
and no one else in the world gets to decide my happiness. And I think that's huge. And we give that, but that's what I'm saying. The insanity is we give that power away to people all the time. People, places, things, situations, and it's easy to do in this job. It is. Like I said, I am grateful for what I came up in to go. When you're around people that will just not accept you, push your buttons, you get a little used to that. You know what I mean? But it is weird because people change, people go through stuff. People, you'll have a great thing with somebody, and then somebody hears something about something that's got nothing to do with you, and then there's a thing, and it's life, man. And we can't control people, places, or things. Be nice, but then again, I go, the world would be really messed up if I could. You know what I mean? It would all be like Mike centered. Yeah, it'd be bad, man. That would not be good. Absolutely. Oh yeah.
So good.
Awesome.
Wasn't that so good?